Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to a repeat of last week, where we're live to you on Twitch for the first part of this double header, let's call it. Obviously for the sprint race and then the main race later on, but you are on Twitch for with myself, Mr. Bobbert, and Mr. Leopard as well. And then later on, obviously, Jota will join us back on YouTube for the main part. But yeah, repeat of last week, and that was me thinking it was just going to be a one-off, Leopard. But here we are once again. But what a race we had last week, both in the sprint and in the main race. And here we go again, this time arguably the home of racing at Silverstone. A fan favourite through amongst a lot of these drivers you potentially might think. But as we load into this, obviously for this one-lap sprint qualifying session, anything is expected.
Indeed it is, and yes, we meet again, Bobbert, for this one-shot quali and sprint race. And yeah, of course, one-shot quali can provide a few surprises. You know, it's only one attempt at it, so we'll see who gets it right, and maybe more importantly, who doesn't get it right. And yeah, you know, looking back to last week briefly, it was an interesting race going in the reverse direction in Zandvoort. You know, a bit tactical, a few safety cars here and there. In fact, I think it was. I think if I remember correctly, we haven't had many safety cars throughout the season. Then we got hit with like two of them, and a couple of VSCs as well. So an action-packed, an incident-packed Zandvoort Grand Prix. But yes, as you mentioned, we now head over to the home of motorsport, if you will, to Silverstone, and I'm sure it's going to be a cracker.
Indeed, well, the weather at least is looking like it's slightly more of your typical, British weather. It's overcast. It's not quite raining at least, unlike it has been depending on where you live in this country. But yeah, either way, at least it's going to be a dry one-lap sprint for these drivers as we're about to get underway and get ourselves out onto the track. Eventually the game decides to load it in for me, so let's get underway here. We're going for the correct version, at least this time around. We'll stick on board with Kevin Zumberg, as the game has decided that he's going to be the random person that this game is looking to follow. But yeah, it certainly was an interesting one-shot qualifying last week. I mean, times were very close towards the top of the time sheets, if I remember rightly. The top 5 or 6, I think, if I remember, were separated by less than a tenth of a second. And in one lap, shot qualifying, that is as close as you want to call it. But let's see, obviously, what we can expect here tonight as Kevin goes through Luffield Corner now, and onto the old pit straight through Woodcut Corner and into some of the most famous corners, not just in F1 but in motorsport, obviously. Down in through Cobb's Corner, 7th gear, try and take it flat out as best as you can there before making the run to Maggots, Beckett and Chapel. Amazing sequence of corners there, through the right, left, and then right again down to 5th gear on the exit of Chapel, and we increase the speed down the Hanger Straight. The first of 2 DRS zones here. Obviously expect some overtaking going down into Stoke Corner later on, both in the sprint and in the main race, but as Kevin flicks the car in there, 6th gear, hugs the inside line very nicely, doesn't let the car run out too far wide. Obviously we know that you can easily run far too wide on the exit of Stoke Corner, through the Vale chicane, and then through the final corner, trying to get the power on as best as we can. Where is Kevin going to end up throughout all this? And the answer is it's going to be P6 for him, but it's AMR Dom, I think I saw there, who takes pole position. And I tell you what, for an AMR team that recently, didn't have the best of races at Zandvoort, but obviously taking the win back in Austria and a second place in Qatar, showing that they mean business. And Dom takes pole position by 21 thousandths of a second over Asim and his teammate Silo there in P3. And ET8, after their 1-2 last week, that is near on the perfect start they want to have to close in on SCI.
Yep, indeed it is. We said, after that 1-2, they've taken a bit of a chunk out of that SCI lead, which is at 69 points. And yeah, they've gone about it in the same way. They're carrying that momentum. It's a good qualifying for ET8, but it's even better qualifying for AMR Dom on pole position. SCI, unlike last week, not able to kind of stick right behind. Me and Jota was saying that they basically limited the damage of that 1-2 of ETA perfectly by finishing 3rd and 4th. Not quite there. Of course, no points for qualifying. But it shows that ETA, if they continue this form, oh hello, yes, definitely. The British weather has arrived.
Yes.
It was incoming.
It was certainly incoming, as we thought. A dryish sort of qualifying. We thought, here comes the actual typical British weather, rain and a lot of it, and that you expect nothing less. But yeah, as you were touching on ET8 there, last week was the first time since the opening round of the season that they managed to outscore SCI. It's taken them, a further 7 rounds, but it's the first time they've been able to actually close in on SCI. The gap is 69 points between the top two, then over it's 232 points back to VNT, who are in 3rd place currently. But yeah, it's this is certainly going to bring in some interesting. An interesting sprint race here. We've got 9 laps of this sprint race to come our way, and different setups are certainly going to be needed.
Well, I mean, would they have seen this was on the way? I'm guessing they would have. It's been a while since I've done a league race. So I don't know if they've, because I remember, in the past you'd be able to see what was, coming for the race. So, would you plan for a sprint like this? I don't know. It's interesting because obviously, there are times, and as I'm sure you'll remember, Bob, it's that even if it was raining, it's still running at the very least a majority dry setup. Depends.
Yeah, depending, obviously. Yeah, if it was intermediates, then yeah, you could certainly, at least on previous games, you could get away with running a more dry setup. Maybe just alter the wings ever so slightly. But in rain like this, where it's, you look like you might need a canoe to get yourself around the track, or a boat, then yeah, maybe a bit more of a tweak is certainly needed. But nonetheless, this is certainly going to be a throw up for the drivers. So yeah, even if it is just in this sprint format, they are certainly going to have to.
Yeah.
Be a little bit more careful than usual, but that's easier said than done. We've got 20 drivers here who will certainly give it, all guns blazing. To obviously maximise the points that they can. But with Smeggy, they're just saying an interesting comment in the chat. I've just seen it now. Thank you very much, Smeg.
One that can't be repeated.
Love you. One that's maybe potentially cannot be repeated.
Right.
Either way, we have the 5 red lights here for the sprint race. It is lights out and away we go. It's AMR Dom who gets us underway here ahead of there we go. Tisha now saying he's leading the race on lap 2. Yep, nice one, game. That's a lovely what we like to see. I'll tell you one thing that we can see though is wet weather tyres. You don't see that too often, but either way, it is Dom who leads the way. He stayed ahead of both the ETA drivers who are going side by side in through farm and into the loop now. But there goes a dive bomb. That is a dive bomb and a half by a seam there on the inside. Certainly caught Dom out, not napping, but he certainly wouldn't have expected it. He's got the traction at least round the outside through the loop and onto the Wellington straight. Obviously no DRS on this first race lap, let alone in the race itself. Either way, Dom manages to maintain the lead, but it's a big gap already opened up behind. Thankfully the timing boards have worked themselves out now through the first sector and we can see where everybody is, but it's a big gap between 3rd and 4th. But all hell played for it broke loose there, and a seam, that was a dive bomb and a half.
Yeah, he went for it, all out attack, going into the loop there from Azim. Went for it, Silo looks like he's got a better exit, has he? No, not quite. Went for it, bit of contact, bit forceful, in the end didn't quite come off, and Dom keeps the lead. One thing to mention, we have a couple on intermediates, most notably, the 2 SCI drivers have gone with the intermediate tyres to start this Grand Prix. I think we can both clearly see it's not intermediates yet as Azim moves over for Silo. But the race could come to SCI. We'll have to wait and see. There's only 9 laps, so it's not long. They haven't got much time for those inters to come into their own. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But Dom leads the way on a full wet tyres, as are the 2 ETA drivers. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out strategically. As we've got one of the pits, one of the Venturi drivers is Tom.
Indeed, they have, and there's one of the Ferraris as well. That is Lucas also going into the pits at the end of lap 1 to just obviously get out of the traffic, and obviously everyone still has to make one stop like they did last week at Zandvoort and Austria before that as well. So yeah, we'll see how that works out for them. But obviously keeping out, like you said, on those Mercedes from those SEO drivers, see how those intermediates perform. At the moment, they seem to be just about hanging on there for Oscar in P5 at the moment. I do wonder if Asim has picked up a bit of damage from that dive bomb that he made, because he's dropped off the back. He's dropped off the back of his teammate quite substantially. And certainly he's very soon going to come under threat from David there in P4 at the moment. I've tried to look at it myself. There doesn't seem to be any, but I wonder if it's light green damage that's not visible to us, and it is certainly to him on his Delta. But we'll keep an eye on that as time goes by. But he's certainly losing time hand over fist. As I mentioned, Oscar seems to be doing pretty well in his intermediate times as they get up to temperature and up to speed now. See, as we mentioned, Luke and Tom have gone into the box already. Tom going back onto the wets, Luke going back onto another set of intermediates for the time being. But yeah, there's certainly the gaps are already starting to develop. Volaconga now coming under threat from Lafitte there for P7 and P8. Intermediates versus wet tyres coming through Maggott and Beckett. And it looks like the Red Bull has got the slightly more grip coming through these, high speed, medium speed corners. But on the, I've completely missed that. And
Silo around the outside of Stowe. Dom trying to hold on, he's going to try and move onto the curb, but Silo sticking his nose in there, bit of contact on exit, and now we head into club. Silo's going to still stick it down the inside of Amar Dom. They're still side by side on exit. Dom's really trying to move Silo onto the curb, but Silo's still finding the grip on those wet tyres. Dom somehow finds a way to hold on for the time being, but Silo looks like he's got a lot of confidence in these wet weather conditions at this moment in time, and Dom is just trying his best to hold on. He's held on valiantly for now, but with the sheer pace Silo has, you'd think it might just only be a matter of time.
I mean, we know how good Silo is in any form of racing condition. He's certainly an up-and-coming driver, if not already as it is, on this game and on previous games itself. But Dom seems to have a little bit better first sector there compared to the Alpine there. So the moment he's managed to hold his own and stays in P1 for the time being, Silo in P2. 2.5 seconds now is the gap between Silo and Asim. And even though Asim is struggling, these two are pulling away from the rest of the field. David there holding off Oscar comfortably for P4. Volaconga in P6 still has Lafitte all over his gearbox. But more pit stoppers coming in. As something happening in the background there, Leopard.
Yeah, no, some more with Silo. Just dipped the wheel in the gravel in the next level. That field easily done. I thought, but when I saw him dip a wheel, I was like, is that car gonna spiral out of control? In the end, it was just, literally all nothing but a dip in the of a wheel in the gravel. Didn't unsettle the car at all. But yeah, probably no overreaction on my part. But as they come through Maggott, Beckett, and Chapel onto the hangar straight, Dom not under as much pressure this time, so maybe Dom made the mistake through that section last time that allowed Silo to, be alongside coming into Stowe corner, and we'll be interested if they go and make a move now to go into the pits. Dom does. Okay, here we go then. Race leader Amar Dom into the pit lane. Silo continues another lap, so does Asim. So both ETA drivers are going to, one of them's going to have to go to lap 5 at least. Oscar's obviously going to continue. Dom sets a fast, of course I'm going to set a fast lap of the race because that part of the pit lane basically cuts half the track. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. So Dom pulls the pin for a step intermediate tyres to the end of this Grand Prix, or the sprint, I should say.
Indeed, yeah, we'll see how that pans out for him at least. Obviously, yeah, undercut certainly is powerful, but obviously it's getting those tyres up to temperature in these wet weather conditions. I'm sticking the ball with Kevin, obviously, who was the first driver to make a pit stop. It's interesting to see where he's going to come out in all this. He was P6 at the time, I believe, when he made that pit stop. So let's see where he comes out in relation to everybody else. And it looks to me like he's got ahead of David there, but behind Dom. But that is actually a gain. Well, David was in P4, so that he's gained 2 places at least by that first lap pit stop. So a good strategy there from Kevin at least to get, promoting himself for the time being, and actually quite comfortably at that as well. So we'll see how that carries on for him. But a lot of drivers, as you probably can see, have gone on to the intermediate tyres. Clearly, as the track is rubbing in ever so slightly, maybe the rain is, lightened ever so slightly as well. I can't quite tell, to be honest. It doesn't look like it has. But some have gone onto the wets again. None the least, Simborok Swan.
Interesting. I've just had a thought. Obviously, I don't know if this is I should probably read it from the rule book, but obviously, usually in a wet race, you're not technically obliged to make a pit stop if it's wet.
True. I'm not too sure what the rules are though regarding the
sprint race,
in
anyway.
I think none of them are taking the chance in it, but it'd be interesting to see if any of them have read the rule book properly to see if they have to or not. One thing that is happening though is Asim obviously has to stay out because his teammate is in, but both SCI drivers are still staying out.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, well, look, they're closing on Asim's, particularly Oscar as well. I know it just crossed my mind. Are we going to see different interpretations of rules? We've seen it before in motor racing, where one team believes the rules are one thing, and another team will believe it's something completely different or slightly different. I know. I mean, yeah, Silo. They haven't taken the chance with Silo. So I'm guessing Asim's going to be in fairly soon. I think right now we're getting to the point where the Inters are going to be the tyre to be on.
Indeed,
Um,
I think that's just been proven now by Astala, just going down the inside line as Simbarox won there, coming into farm corner, and then through the loop he's just managing to hold the inside line quite comfortably. So yeah, I think the wet tyres are certainly, they might have been good initially off the line and to get used to the conditions, rather than maybe the first lap or two, maybe three at the most, but these intermediates certainly are now the tyre to be on. They certainly are a lot quicker, and yeah, Astala just proving that point now, like I said, with Simbarox one, just slowly but surely just losing that bit of pace. One thing that someone who hasn't lost pace is Silo. Even though he went one lap later, he's all over the back of that racing bull once again, coming through Copse Corner, and it's back as we were. Battle commences, or recommences.
Indeed, it does. A brief eye on the SCI. No, nothing doing for Oscar on Asim. So now we're going to try and see if Silo can finally get that move done on Dom, but Dom gets a growl. There we go. No, Asim into the pit lane, then Oscar continuing another lap. Volakongan in. So it doesn't look like if there was any potential loopholes or twisting of the rules that no one's going to try and go for it and trying to be clever. I guess there's no reason if you're SCI to try and be clever. It'd be a bit silly. It's not really a risk worth taking, is it, when you're in that position? I mean, sure, it'd look cool or whatever, but it's not really necessary. You know what I mean? It's not a necessary gamble to take in SCI's position. If it was ET8, maybe, as Lafitte sets the fastest lap of the race. So Volakongan lights up the rears out of the pit lane and slots back into 8th place behind Lafitte, who has just set the fastest lap of this sprint race. Silo still staying in pursuit of Dom. Kevin looking set for a podium, maybe? And Oscar, I'm guessing, is going to be in this lap.
Yeah, I'd have thought so. I think Oscar, what he's trying to do is maybe try and set a few quicker lap times than David, because obviously he was behind him at the start of this race. That is his goal, is at least to try and get ahead of the McLaren there, as he will certainly come into the pits at the end of this lap with 3 laps to go. But this is the battle for the net race lead, and these guys are now 5 seconds clear of Kevin Zumbo, currently running in P4. So it is Dom versus Silo once again, back as we were at the beginning of this race. But this time it looks like the Alpine there of Silo looks like he's got a little bit more grip coming through these. Again, coming through Copse, through Maggotts and Beckett's now. We're right on board with the Alpine man as we exit Chapel Corner, see if we can get a decent run out of here. It looks fairly tidy there from Silo, but it hasn't really. He's got a bit of battery to play with, but obviously with no DRS, he's not really going to be close enough, and it's just going to be file formation.
Yeah, Dom's getting a great exit out of Chapel every time. In fact, just looking through that whole section, it looks like he just gets maybe a tenth or two. Oscar into the pits as expected at the end of lap 6, so we start lap 7, so 3 laps to go of this sprint race here in a rain-soaked Silverstone circuit. But yeah, it looks like Dom, maybe with the rear of that car, has a little bit more grip. Maybe that's what I'm getting at. He's just firing that car out the corners just that little bit better than Silo at the moment, it seems.
Wow, Oscar is ahead of Kevin.
Oh my!
That I did not expect, but wow. That is you don't generally see overcuts on this game, but that is an amazing overcut there from the SCI man, and he's got himself into P3. So I mean, there's too little time for him to close in on the 2 leaders. But still, to get himself obviously from behind the lead, and even with the likes of obviously Asim and Kevin obviously as well, trying to get an undercut aspect on, Oscar has gained, well, 2 places at least overall, and well, that's certainly one thing that SCI would have needed, is at least to split the ETA drivers, and that's what they've done. Volokong is still down in PA. He's got Lafitte to try and close in and get a move on, but 2.5 laps to go already of this sprint race before we go into the qualifying, and then we do this in reverse once again. Everyone, hopefully they've done plenty of laps when it comes to this later on tonight, but either way, we'll go back on board with the 2 race leaders, and this is the closest I've seen Silo for a little while now, coming down the hanger straight. Dom defending the inside line like it's his favourite granny, but either way, Silo not quite close enough, and in the end, he doesn't even have to defend. He can just follow that racing line, and we go again with 2 laps to go.
Yeah, that's the thing with the racing. You have to be a lot closer, to make a move. It's not like the driver. You can maybe send it from a little bit further back. Silo sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Yeah, I mean, it was a little closer, but not close enough. And Dom defend that inside line momentarily, but then came to the conclusion naturally, particularly as it's Stowe, it's not the most closed off corner. It's not like the hairpin and Shanghai where you can. It's a lot more of a heavier braking zone. It's more of a. I mean, it's a fifth gear corner, isn't it? So,
Mm.
um, depending, um, it's a faster corner is what I'm trying to get at. So it's not like you're gonna be sending it from miles back into there either. But yeah, Silo is getting closer. He's just, yeah, he's getting closer, isn't he? It's Silo. He might just be able to make a move somewhere, and create like a little half chance. They'll have to go and try and capitalize upon.
Yeah, maybe have to bank on a mistake once again, as that was Sebe, I believe, just on the corner of my eye, going up to P11, sorry, ahead of Tom there. And again, just showing that the intermediates are working quicker. I mean, look at that, Simbrox one that's dropped over 5 seconds off the back of a Starler. So yeah, showing that the wets are not the way to go. Silo once again a little bit closer. This is the best chance that he's got. Dom trying to move over to break that slipstream. He goes to the racing line, back to the middle of the track, where Silo closer to make a move. He's going to try and send it, but still, he's not quite close enough. Maybe that racing ball has got slightly lower downforce, and he's just about far enough ahead to not come under threat too much. Coming through Vale corner now for the penultimate time. One more lap to go for these two. Silo certainly going to have to try and send it, I think, in this first set if he wants any chance.
Yeah, I think he will. Silo sets fast lap of the Grand Prix. He's going to have to try everything. As I said, it was a half chance into so, but again, Dom had the line, he had the corner speed just to lay it over the top. That's a lap from Oscar, by the way. And yeah, he's closed that gap in massively, by nearly a second, but it won't be enough, obviously, with only, well, near enough half a lap to go now. But all eyes on the front two. Can Silo get anywhere near close enough to make a lunge on Dom? He's not going to be making one from back there, or if he does, it's going to be suicide.
Indeed, and yeah, certainly with the position that ET8 are in, they can't really take any chances, especially if it's going to cost them like any form of penalty. But that is a sneaky look down the inside through Luffield there. There was half a door open there left by Dom, but in the end, just about gets away with it. Come down towards Cop's corner for the final time in this sprint format. Steve now going into P10 as Simbrox one is just falling down the field. Are we going to have a move here from Magnus Beckett? The answer is no. He's going to stay in behind, follow him through. He's got to be just that tiny little bit closer than quarter of a second to have any chance. Dom runs wide though through Beckett, in through Chapel now. This is the best. Is he closer again? No, he's slightly further behind than he was last time round. Dom just had a much better run through Chapel corner, and even though he breaks the slipstream, he doesn't really need to. He could just, as long as he just holds his line through Stoke corner and doesn't outbreak himself into Vale, this should be job done for AMR, who will pick up their second win of this season, this time the first sprint race for them. Just the traction zone to go. Do not light up those rear tyres too much so you're spinning yourself on the exit. No, didn't have such an issue. And Dom takes the sprint race win here ahead of Silo there. What was a well-fought battle between the pair of them. Oscar, who was closing in hand over fist, it's the fastest lap of this sprint race, gets P3 with a great strategy call there. Kevin, after the first driver to make a pit stop, finishes P4. Then you've got Asim, David, Lafitte and Volkong is your top 8. Still action going on in the background. T-Show there getting a move done in for P14. But side by side cross, that is a Ferrari spinning across the line. With half a wing missing as well, so a bit of argy-bargy and contact in the back of the field. Obviously, apologies for missed that, but you want to see the front of the race, because at the end of the day, who doesn't want to watch the battle for the win? But it is Dom who takes the win here in the sprint format. But we go again later on, Leopard, with another qualifying session, and we go again in reverse.
Yep, indeed we will, and we'll see what changes that will pose for the drivers. But it's Dom that has mastered it in the correct way, if you will, the more traditional way, as well. Well, maybe a proper traditional way with the British weather coming in as well. Also traditional British weather to add to the occasion. But yeah, Dom takes the victory from Silo, Oscar, Kevin, Azim, David, Lafitte and Volokongan in the points. Yeah, Dom held on brilliantly.
He did a great job in the end, and yeah, Silas certainly put him under a lot of pressure. He gave it his all, but in the end, he didn't crack. And yeah, AMR, like I said, taking their first sprint race win of the season. That is your Twitch format done for this week. Once again, like last week, the actual next part of this, obviously this round will be on YouTube. Once again, Jota will be available now. Leopard will go ahead and join him. like last week, once again, he gets to speak to two people. How lucky does he feel? Probably not in the slightest. Either way, we thank you all for being here to watch this sprint format. Go on, John, like I said, go onto YouTube and watch the main action. Obviously, which will start very soon. But from myself, Mr. Bobbert here, and from Leopard, at least for this first part of this Silverstone action-packed Grand Prix, we'll see you very shortly.